Amber walked into the room. She was just as beautiful as I remembered. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She used to go to the same school as me, but when her dad got a new job, they had moved away. I had always had a big crush on her, but she never seemed to notice me. I was so happy when my parents told me that Amber's family was moving back to our town. Maybe now I would get a chance to date her. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on any more crazy stories. My parents were throwing a welcome back party for Amber and her family. It should have been the perfect time for me to spend some time with her, but it seemed like every other boy in town had the same idea. Every time I tried to talk to her, another guy would cut in, and they were all showering her with compliments. "Amber, you look so cute. Amber, your hair is so nice. How did you get so fit?" Fortunately though, Amber didn't seem interested in any of them. She just ignored their compliments. That was until Richard came into the room. He was the son of one of the wealthiest families in our town. He went straight over to Amber and said, "Hey, I heard you were back. I've got you a present." Amber's eyes started to light up at his words. She turned around to look at him. He handed her an expensive-looking blue box. "Go on then," he said. "Open it." Amber opened it and gasped. "Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous!" Inside the box was a pearl necklace. I could tell just by looking at it that it must have cost a small fortune. Amber and Richard spent the rest of the evening chatting and laughing together. It was obvious that the way to get Amber's attention was to buy her an expensive gift. But I didn't have any money. No way would my parents give me that sort of money either. After everyone went home, I sat in my room thinking about Amber. I knew that I had to find a way to get her an expensive gift. Suddenly, it was like a light bulb had lit up in my head. I knew what I had to do. I didn't need to buy her something expensive. All I had to do was find a way to make a cheap gift look like something very expensive. I remembered how when we were kids, we used to collect stones at the beach and paint them. I went out to the garden to look for the perfect stone. It had to be smooth. I found what I was looking for and took it back to my room. I painted it a shiny black color and put it on a chain. I put it into a nice box with tissue to make it look expensive. After school the next day, I waited at the school gates for Amber to come out. Eventually, I saw her, and luckily, she was alone. "Hi, Amber," I said. "Oh, hi, She obviously had no idea who I was. "It's Toby," I said. "My parents threw your family the welcome back party." "Oh yes, thanks. It was great." "I've got you a present." I handed Amber the box and she opened it up. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked. I smiled and nodded. "Yes, it's a black diamond." "But they're so expensive. Why would you spend so much money on me?" "Because I think you're amazing." "You are so generous. Thank you so much." I knew that this was the perfect time, so I plucked up the courage and asked her if she would like to go on a date with me. To my surprise, she actually said yes. I had never felt happier in my whole life. I couldn't believe that my plan had worked out. We swapped numbers and arranged to go out the following weekend. Friday night came, and I went to meet Amber at the movies. I went to buy the tickets and was just about to go inside when Amber stopped me. "Wait, aren't you going to get some drinks and popcorn?" she asked. I started panicking inside. I didn't have any more money with me. I had no idea what I was going to do. "Sure," I said. "You go find the seats and I'll go get something." I waited about 5 minutes and then went inside to find Amber. "Sorry, the popcorn machine is broken and they've sold out of the drinks," I said. Amber looked at me a bit strangely. I thought she was going to say something, but then the movie started and she turned to look at the screen. I let out a sigh of relief. We hadn't been on that many dates when I began to realize that Amber wasn't the one for me. She was constantly asking for things, and if I didn't get her what she wanted, then she went in a big mood and ignored me. She was so materialistic. I really didn't like that about her. It all came to a head when we were in town shopping one day. Amber had seen a new pair of shoes that she wanted. She kept on and on about them. "Oh, Toby, please buy me those shoes. I love them so much." "I'm sorry, Amber," I said. "I'm not getting you the shoes." Her face fell. "If you loved me, you'd buy me the shoes." "Right, that's it. We're over," I screamed. "Are you dumping me?" she asked. I felt a bit mean and didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I just said that it wasn't her, it was me. I told her that I just needed some time on my own. Now that I wasn't dating anyone, I had a lot of time on my hands, a lot of time to think. That's when it came to me. If I had managed to fool Amber with the necklace, maybe I could fool other people too. So that's how my business began. I started making lots of different colored necklaces out of stones and sold them online. It wasn't long before my business took off. Everyone wanted one of my necklaces. I could hardly make them quick enough. I expanded my business and rented a factory and office space. Now I had a whole production team working for me, and the money just came rolling in. I couldn't believe it when I saw the figures on my bank statement. I was a billionaire. I started really living the high life then. I bought the best designer clothes and ate in the most expensive restaurants in town. I also looked after my family. My parents had never had a new car, so imagine their faces when I gave them the keys to a brand new Mercedes. "Toby, that's so thoughtful of you," said my mom. At first, I was happy to keep on giving them the things that they needed, but after a while, it seemed like every time I saw them, they were asking me for something. "We've been thinking about going on a cruise," my dad said as we sat down for dinner. "Do you think you could book it for us, Toby?" I didn't know what to say. I was really getting fed up with my parents. It was me that had made all this money, and they did nothing but take, take, take. "That's it," I shouted. "I've had enough. No more helping you out. It's time you two stood on your own 2 feet. I stormed out of the kitchen and up to my bedroom. But I couldn't get away from them. They kept on knocking at my door, trying to get me to change my mind. So eventually, I knew there was nothing else for it. I would have to move out. I decided I would go and live as far away from them as possible. I bought myself a small island on the Caribbean and moved into a beautiful home there. It was easy to run my business from home because everything I needed to do could be done remotely. For a while, I just kept to myself. I didn't want to be near anyone. But I soon began to get bored with my own company, so one evening I went into town to check out the nightlife. That's when I met Paula. She was out with a group of her friends. I noticed her as soon as they came into the room. She was laughing at something one of her friends had said, and the sound of her voice made my heart sing. When I saw her go to get some drinks, I went and stood next to her. I made some stupid comment about the weather. "Is that your best pickup line?" she asked, laughing. It might not have been the best thing I could have said to her, but she agreed to go out with me, and it wasn't long before we were getting serious. I knew that she was the one for me, and she was the complete opposite of Amber. She didn't care about expensive presents. She loved me for who I was, not what I could give her. So I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. We got married at the little church on the island. It was the perfect day. "Where do you want to go on our honeymoon?" I asked her. "Oh, we don't need a honeymoon," she said. "Living here is like a full-time honeymoon." It was true. Living on our little island was all we needed, but I still wanted to do something special for her. The following morning, I decided I would go into town and book a surprise holiday for her. I told Paula that I needed to go get some groceries and set off in the car. I parked and was just about to set off to the travel agency when I suddenly felt someone grab me from behind. I tried to struggle, but it was useless. There were 2 of them, and I didn't stand a chance. They blindfolded me and put me into a car. "What do you want with me?" I shouted. "Leave me alone. You have to let me go." But they just ignored me. The car drove for about 10 minutes and then turned down a bumpy track. I had no idea where they had taken me to. "If you're thinking of asking for a ransom for me, then you're wasting your time," I said. "My parents don't have any money." The car stopped and they dragged me out. They took me into the building. I could tell by the damp smell that it was probably an abandoned warehouse or something. They took the blindfold off. I couldn't focus for a few seconds, but once I could see properly, I got the shock of my life. "What are you 2 doing here?" I asked. Standing in front of me was my parents. "Why would you kidnap me?" Then something even more shocking happened. The door opened and in walked Amber. Now I was really confused. "What's going on here? What do you want from me?" "We know what you have done," my dad said. "We know that you have been scamming everyone with your fake necklaces." My heart sank. "What are you talking about?" I asked. I tried to deny it, but they knew everything. Apparently, Amber had taken her necklace to a jeweler to get it cleaned, and the truth had come out. After that, she had put 2 and 2 together and realized that's how I had made so much money. She had gone to my parents, and they had come up with a plan to blackmail me. "You give us $10 million each, or we're going to tell everyone what you have done," Amber said. I had no choice. "Okay, you win," I said. "I'll pay you, but you have to promise you will leave me alone." They all agreed that they would never bother me again, so I paid them the money. I know it's a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, it was worth it. It hurt me that my own parents would do something like this, but I guess this just gave me all the more reason to stay as far away from them as possible. After they got their money, I didn't see them again. I went back to my office to work. I had missed going to work there every day. It was nice to be back. It was about a month later. I was sitting at my desk when I suddenly heard an almighty crash. I jumped up out of my chair and went to see what was going on. But before I had a chance to open my office door, it came crashing in. The room filled with police officers. "Put your hands up! You're under arrest!" one of them screamed. "It's a mistake. I haven't done anything," I said. "It's no mistake. You've been scamming people." I couldn't believe that my parents and Amber had gone back on their word. How could they do this to me? The police took me to the police station. They took me into a room and told me to wait there. It seemed like an eternity before I heard the door open. "There's someone here to see you," said the officer. I looked up. My parents were standing in the doorway. They came into the room and the officer left. "How could you do this to me? You promised you wouldn't tell anyone," I said. "We didn't say anything to anyone," said Mom. "We were as surprised as you when we found out." "Well, if it wasn't you, then it must have been Amber. Let me borrow your telephone." I called Amber and said the same thing to her, but she promised that it hadn't been her that told the police. I knew she wasn't lying. I could tell by her voice. I was so confused. If it wasn't my parents or Amber, who else could it be? The door opened and a policeman came in. "Come with us. You're going to meet with our witness." I followed him to a room at the end of the corridor. He opened the door and I looked in. I couldn't believe my eyes. "Paula," I gasped. "Why did you do this to me?" She looked at me sadly. "I'm sorry, Toby. I just wanted you to lead an honest life. But our life is so good. We have everything." "I know we do, but I couldn't risk the father of my unborn child being locked up in prison." I looked at Paula in shock. "Are you pregnant?" "Yes, I am." Luckily, the police let me off with a warning, as long as I agreed to stop scamming people. It was a small price to pay now that I was going to be a dad.
I woke up to check on Joshua every night as I usually do, but this night was different. "He's missing! Why do the children of billionaires always go missing?" I said to myself frantically. I had been working as a babysitter for the past 10 years, and I thought I had seen it all until I began working with the Washington family. Hi, my name is Amanda. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when new videos are uploaded. If you do, you have a great chance of finding a bag of cash in the near future. When my agency assigned me to this family, I had my doubts, especially since I was not notified that it was the Washington family, the largest mob family within the area. Well, that's the rumor anyway. Joshua, the child that I was taking care of, was 12 years of age. The first few days I expected to find frogs on my bed and snakes in my drawer, especially since I had an adjoining room next to his. But he was nothing like some of the rich kids that I had taken care of. My job was fairly easy since I didn't have to run behind him picking up toys. My duties included getting him to class with his tutors on time, helping with homework, and staying with him at all times to make sure that he was safe. Based on what I knew about him, he loved animals and wanted to be a doctor when he grew up so he could help people. He got to classes on time, did his homework, he even went to bed when he was told. This was the easiest babysitting job that I ever had. "Hi, Amanda. I hope that Joshua isn't giving you too much trouble," Mrs. Washington said. "He's a great kid," I replied. "Mrs. Washington and I will be going out of the country for 2 weeks. All we ask is you keep an eye on Joshua to make sure he doesn't get into any trouble," Mr. Washington said in an authoritative voice. That was the last thing Mr. Washington told me, and here I stood in front of the bed his son was supposed to be sleeping in. The bed was here, but the son was not. Nothing unusual happened that night to indicate that Joshua was upset and needed to blow off steam. As usual, I instructed Joshua to go to bed that night, and he did. I was frantic. I ran through the mansion, opening doors, calling down the dimly lit hallway. "Joshua, are you there?" I made it down to the kitchen where Martha, the cook, was cleaning up the kitchen for the night. "Have you seen Joshua?" I asked, my eyes wide with terror. I did not want to think about what would happen to me if something happened to Joshua. "I haven't seen Joshua since dinner, but I wouldn't worry about it too much if I were you." She smiled at me. Not worry? Joshua is missing. How could I not be worried? I threw my hands up in the air helplessly. "If you're worried about Mr. Washington, don't be. I've been working with the man for years, and under all the rough, tough exterior, he's a big teddy bear." Martha said. Yeah, a big teddy bear that's gonna do more than smack me on the head, I thought. He'll be back in the morning. The best thing you could do is go back to bed and get a good night's rest. Joshua is a great kid, and you, my dear, don't have anything to worry about. Martha was right. I had no choice but to wait it out and see. It's not like I could go to the police because then Mr. and Mrs. Washington would be contacted, and I really didn't want that. The last 3 months working there had actually been great, and it wasn't like anything I expected. Maybe everything I heard about the Washingtons were rumors, but I really didn't want to find out the hard way. I returned to Joshua's room and I decided to sit in the chair next to his bed and wait until he got home. He had some explaining to do. I woke up the next morning and realized that Joshua's bed was made, but he wasn't in it. Damn it, did he even come home? I jumped up from the bed and ran to the kitchen as though someone was chasing me. There, Joshua sat having breakfast by the kitchen counter, having a conversation with Martha. I looked at him and at Martha, who smiled at me. Good morning. Did you sleep well? She asked. She had that "I told you" look in her eyes. I decided that there and then wasn't the time or place to drill Joshua about where he had been the night before. I walked out of the kitchen and went to get ready for the day. Why did Joshua disappear last night? Where did he go? Why didn't he try this stunt when his parents were around? I had too many questions and no answers. I needed answers before I had to speak to Mr. Washington. That night, I did the same routine. I instructed Joshua to go to bed, which he did without complaint. I got dressed, sneakers and all, and put my robe on and went to bed and waited. Sure enough, I heard my door creak open, then close. I jumped up and slowly opened the adjoining door to see Joshua climbing out of the window. And where do you think you're going? I said to myself as I quickly pulled off my robe. I felt my inner private eye emerge, and I quickly made it downstairs and out the front door just in time to see Joshua running across the estate. I followed Joshua. It's a good thing I had many years running down toddlers, so I was able to keep up at a safe distance so I would not be spotted. I watched as Joshua dodged between 2 bushes and disappeared. I quickly followed. There were 2 bars that had been cut to make an escape route. I squeezed myself between the bars and followed. He walked until he reached the shabbier part of town until he came to a narrow alley. I continued to lurk from the shadows. He stopped in front of a red door. I watched as he knocked on the door. A slot in the door opened and Joshua looked around before whispering something to the person on the other side. The door opened and Joshua disappeared into the room. I couldn't leave there without Joshua, but I also didn't want to cause him harm either. I needed reinforcements, so I called a good friend of mine, Tony Burton. I told him about what was happening and he said he would be right there. So what's the deal with this kid? Tony asked as we sat in the van close to the alleyway. It was a dead end, so Joshua only had one way to get out of the alley. Why doesn't his father just hire a bodyguard for him anyway? Tony asked. Well, for starters, I think all the rumors about the Washington family are false. I've been working there for months and I haven't seen a henchman or even so much as a gun. All I know is something is going on with this kid and I need to get to the bottom of it, I said. It was about 4 a.m. when we noticed Joshua leaving the alley in a brown pickup truck. Tony and I followed close behind. When I realized that they were making the turnoff to head to the mansion, I hopped out of the van. Thanks, Tony. I can take it from here, I said. Keep me posted, he said before driving off. I hid behind some trees until I saw the van exiting the road that led to the mansion. When I got to the room, I found Martha looking through my stuff. Can I help you with something, Martha? I questioned. Oh, Amanda, I knocked before entering, but when I didn't get a reply, I let myself in. I am just tidying your room a bit. You know the Washingtons want the mansion to be in top shape all the time, Martha fumbled. Is that why you were checking through my suitcase that were closed and tucked neatly away in the closet? I asked with a raised eyebrow. Martha excused herself and exited my room. What were you looking for, Martha? I mumbled as I placed everything back in my suitcase. Now, not only did I have to worry about Joshua, but I had to worry about Martha as well. Something was going on and I wanted to get to the bottom of this. Martha knew exactly where Joshua was going when he disappeared. The Washingtons were coming back in a week's time, and I wanted to find out what was going on before then. Later that evening, Tony called me, and I couldn't believe what he found out. So, it looks like little Mr. Runaway is actually doing some good behind that closed door. He's actually working with a man named Rob Gill, who is the founder of the One Love charity. They collect and distribute grocery items and other supplies to needy families. Oh, and Rob Gill is Martha's brother. I thanked Tony for the information and hung up the phone. I breathed a sigh of relief. It confirmed that Martha did know where Joshua was running away to, but why would Joshua keep something like that a secret? Why didn't he tell me or his parents? Before going to bed that night, I questioned Joshua about the intel that I received on him. So, will you be heading down to Miller Avenue tonight, or will you be staying at home? Joshua froze and looked at me. So are you going to come clean, or do I have to tell your parents? I added sternly. No, please don't tell my parents, he said and sighed heavily as he sat on his bed. I didn't want anyone to know because I just wanted something that wasn't to the Washington name, where people didn't think I had a motive behind what I was doing. All I wanted to do was help people, he said. I have no problem with you going and doing something to help others, but I will be going with you from now on. It's my responsibility to look out for you, and I can't do that if I have no idea where you are, understood? I said. Joshua smiled and nodded. That night, Joshua and I helped Rob and the members of his organization pack groceries for needy families. Rob actually ran a very tight ship, and I was impressed by the number of families that came each night to collect their supplies. You know, if it wasn't for young Joshua here, we would not have been able to expand our program, Rob said as he squeezed Joshua's shoulder affectionately. The next few nights, we did the same routine, and I even got Tony to help a few nights. I felt somewhat like a superhero babysitter by day and amazing humanitarian by night. The night before the Washingtons came home, while packing goods into the bags, the police raided the organization. The police ordered everyone to lay on the ground while they searched the rooms. My heart was pounding, and I could see the fear in Joshua's eyes as he looked at me. After about 15 minutes, one of the officers said, "We found something, sir. Bags of diamonds stuffed in the chickens." I felt my heart rip out of my chest as the adults were rounded up and taken to jail while the minors were taken away by social services. As I was sitting giving a statement to a police officer, a man barged into the room. My client had nothing further to say. I demand that my client be released immediately, the man said. He wore a three-piece suit and held a briefcase in one hand. I was escorted immediately from the room, and a few minutes after, the police officer told me that I was free to go. Mr. Washington sends his regards, the man said before walking out of the police station. I was able to make a call and Tony picked me up. I need to find out where they are holding Joshua, I said. Just then, Tony's phone rang and he answered. He looked at me and handed the phone without a word. It was Mr. Washington. Joshua is safe at home. Come back to the mansion and we can discuss this in the morning, he said before the phone went dead. The next morning, I was called into Mr. Washington's office. I didn't sleep a wink the night before. I didn't know what to expect or what Mr. Washington would say or do. Thank you for staying with us, Amanda. Joshua told us what a good babysitter you've been to him. He is still a bit shaken up from last night, but he told me everything and said that you wanted to protect him by keeping his secret. Now I ask that you speak nothing of what happened last night, and you swear loyalty to me and my family, or you may be facing charges for distribution of stolen goods. Mr. Washington said slyly. What choice did I have? I swore loyalty to the Washingtons. I ran down to the kitchen to confront Martha. I was convinced that she knew her brother was a thief and he was using his organization as a cover-up. Why did she get Joshua involved if she knew this? I entered the kitchen, but Martha wasn't there. I asked the other staff if they knew where she was, and nobody seemed to have heard about Martha. How was this possible? I said as I walked to my room. Later that night, Tony called me. Martha is dead. Before I could hang up the phone, I heard a knock on the door and then Mr. Washington appeared. By now, you would have noticed that Martha is no longer with us. I have instructed staff that there was never a woman named Martha working here. Martha had a little accident this morning and she is unable to report to duty. You see, Amanda, I reward loyalty with loyalty and disloyalty with, well, you know, Mr. Washington said before turning and leaving my room abruptly. The answers I wanted died with Martha. Maybe the less I knew, the better it was for me. I had no choice but to adapt to my surroundings. I thought about how different my life would have been if I didn't accept the job. My only goal now is to stay alive. I went to a Billionaire high school. You would think it would have been the best time of my life, but it was actually the craziest time of my life. You'll never believe what happened. I was an ordinary kid living in an ordinary house. I never dreamt that I would have the chance to go to such an expensive school, but here's how I did it. But before I go on, stop right there. Have you subscribed to the channel yet? If you have, congratulations! If you haven't, what are you doing? Quick, hit that subscribe button now! And while you're at it, tap that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more crazy stories. It all started when my teacher told me about this amazing Billionaire high school. It costs millions of dollars a year in fees. Only the kids from the richest families were able to afford to go there. But this year the school was offering a scholarship to anyone who wanted to go there. All the cost would be covered by the scholarship. "You should try to apply to the scholarship, Carla," said Mrs. Green, my teacher. She gave me the application forms, and that night I sat in my bedroom reading through them. It all seemed straightforward enough, and I began to fill out the forms. I was halfway through when my older sister Tina came into my room. "Carla, have you got my blue shirt?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm never allowed to wear your clothes." Tina was about to leave when she noticed the papers in my hand. "What's that you've got there?" she asked. I didn't want to show her. She would probably think I was stupid to even think of applying. "It's nothing," I said, but she grabbed the papers out of my hand and started reading them. "Don't waste your time with this, Carla," she said. "You wouldn't like it at a school like that." She threw the application forms into the bin and went out laughing to herself. I went over and got them out of the bin. I quickly filled out the rest of the form and hid the papers away. I'm not going to tell Tina I've applied, I thought. The next morning on my way to school, I dropped the letter into the post box. On the form, it had said that the winning candidate would get a letter by the first Monday in February. The next few weeks seemed to drag, but eventually it was the day the letter was due. I heard the letterbox rattle as the postman dropped the letters. I ran through from the kitchen, but Tina was already picking up the pile of letters. "Anything for me?" I asked casually. "No, nothing," said Tina. I was disappointed, but I didn't let her see. Oh well, maybe the letter will come tomorrow, I thought. But the next day arrived, and still no letter. 3 weeks went by, and I heard nothing. I had given up hope of any letter arriving for me, and had resigned myself to the fact that I wouldn't be going to the Billionaire high school. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Mom was doing the ironing as I came through to the kitchen. "Do me a favor, Carla. Take these clothes up to your sister's room, please," said Mom. I took the pile of clothes and went upstairs. I put them on Tina's bed and was about to leave the room when I saw a letter sticking out of one of her drawers. I took it and saw that it had my name on the front. My hands were shaking, but I opened the letter and read it. "Congratulations, Carla. You've been chosen to receive the scholarship to the Billionaire High School," the letter said. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy and excited, but so angry at the same time. Why had Tina hidden the letter away? What if I had never found it? A few seconds later, Tina came into the room. When she saw I had the letter in my hand, her face fell. "Why didn't you give me the letter?" I asked. "Are you trying to ruin my life? Well, too bad you didn't succeed because I got the scholarship." Tina explained that she had only hidden the letter because she didn't want me to leave. "I will miss you so much," she cried. I couldn't stay angry with her once I found out the reason she had hidden the letter. "I'll miss you too," I said, "but I'll be home every holiday." Finally, the day came for me to leave for school. My bags were packed and I put them into the car that the school had sent for me. I hugged my mom and dad and waved goodbye. I was so excited to be going. "See you in June," I called out as we drove off. When I got to the school, I was met by the headmaster. "Come to our school, Carla," he said. "I'm sure you'll soon settle in and make lots of friends." He showed me to my room and I unpacked my things. Every student had their own room at the school. I looked out at the window. I could see other students arriving at the school. They were all in big, posh cars driven by chauffeurs. The headmaster had told me to go down to the dining room at 1 o'clock. As I made my way downstairs, I saw 3 girls about my age standing in the hallway. "Excuse me," I said to them. "Do you know where I'm supposed to go for my lunch?" They looked at me and laughed. "If you are meaning where high tea is served, then it's over there," they said as they pointed to the room across the hall. Of course posh people call it high tea, I thought to myself. I felt so stupid. I could still hear them laughing as I made my way across to the dining room. That was the first mistake of many mistakes I made. I wasn't like the other kids at the school. They spoke differently to me. They were really snobby too, especially Charlotte, Verity, and Tamsin. They were the meanest of everyone. They told everyone that I was only at the school because I had won the scholarship. They made sure that everyone knew that I came from a poor family, that my parents didn't even have a car, never mind a car with a chauffeur. The only time I felt happy was when I saw Luke. I had a secret crush on Luke. He was so handsome and funny, and when he saw me sitting alone, he would smile at me. Just seeing his smile made me feel so much happier. Luke was one of the popular boys. He was tall and good-looking. I wondered why he always wore big baggy jumpers and tops. I felt sure he had a great body under all those clothes. He should show it off, I thought. Luke never really spoke to me. He was always surrounded by pretty girls. I didn't stand a chance. One day, I was heading back to their dorm when Charlotte, Verity, and Tamsin came over to me. "I'm going to my family's villa in Barbados this summer break," said Charlotte. "Where are you going?" "Probably her back garden," said Verity meanly. "That's if she even got a garden," said Tamsin, laughing. Everyone else heard what they had said and started laughing and pointing at me. I was just about to run off to my room when Luke came running over. "Leave her alone," he said to Charlotte, Verity, and Tamsin. "Stop being so mean." I couldn't believe that Luke had stuck up for me. After that, we became good friends. Sometimes Luke and I would hang out together after school. The school had huge grounds and we would go for a walk. I wished that Luke would hold my hand, but he had definitely put me in the friend zone. I tried to flirt with him, but he didn't seem to notice and he didn't flirt back. I realized that Luke was only going to be my friend, and that was better than nothing. I tried to ignore the mean girls, and most of the time it worked. I hoped that they would get bored bullying me if I ignored them, but I was wrong. At first, I didn't notice all the photos on the school walls. It was only as I went into the common room that I realized the photos were all of me. Somehow, someone had gotten a hold of some photos of me outside my house and had blown them up and put them all over the school. Underneath, they had written in big red letters, "How the poor people live." I was so embarrassed. Everyone was laughing, but Charlotte, Verity, and Tamsin were laughing loudest. I knew that they were behind this. Suddenly, Luke came running over to me. He looked so angry. He stood next to me and shouted to everyone, "You shouldn't care if someone is rich or poor. It doesn't matter what her family has. She earned her place at this school through hard work. Stop being mean to her." While everyone stared in shock, Luke pulled me by the arm and took me to his room. I was so happy that he had stuck up for me. He must really like me, I thought. Luke was sitting on the bed when I decided it was now or never. I went over and tried to kiss him, but instead of kissing me back, he just pushed me away from him. "What are you doing?" he said. "I don't want to kiss you." I had ruined everything. I ran from Luke's room crying. When I got to my room, I grabbed my suitcase and started packing all my things. I don't want to stay here anymore, I thought. I want to go home. I had nearly finished packing when Luke walked into my room. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm leaving," I replied. "Look," said Luke, "I have something to tell you. I'm not who you think I am." With that, Luke pulled off his wig and took off his baggy shirt. I couldn't believe my eyes. Standing in front of me was my big sister, Tina. "What are you doing here?" I cried. "I came to keep an eye on you," she said. "I had a feeling these spoiled rich kids would be horrible to you." I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. "Now that you know, we can get our revenge on them," she went on. Tina put the wig back on in her baggy shirt, and once again, she was Luke. "I have a plan," Luke said. I was too stunned to say anything because I realized I had almost just kissed my sister. But I soon calmed down and I listened to Luke's, or should I say Tina's, plan. The next day, we were sitting in the common room and I saw Tina go over to talk to Charlotte, Verity, and Tamsin. "Hi, girls," she said in her fake guy voice. "Would you all like to come to a party at my house on Saturday?" What is Tina up to? I thought. The girls all said they would love to go and Tina gave them the address. When I had a chance to get Tina on her own, I asked her what their plan was. She told me that she had invited the girls to a haunted house and she was going to need my help to prank them. Saturday night came around and Tina and I waited at the haunted house. The 3 girls arrived and Tina took them into the lounge. She got them a drink and sat down with them chatting. "Oh, I better warn you," she said in that guy voice of hers. "This house is haunted. We have a ghost." I was hiding in the room next door. I began to make some spooky noises. "What's that noise?" said Charlotte in a scared voice. The other girls looked at her petrified. That was my chance. I jumped through the door. I was dressed all in white and they actually believed I was a ghost. They ran out of the house screaming. "Mom! Mom!" they shouted as they ran down the driveway. "I want my mom!" Tina and I sat laughing. "Did you get all that on video?" I asked. "I sure did," said Tina, laughing. "Now we just need to wait for the perfect time to show everyone." We didn't have to wait long. The following month was the end of the school term. To celebrate, the headmaster had told us that we could have a movie night. Luckily, Tina was on the committee organizing the evening. She volunteered to be in charge of setting up the video. The whole school gathered in the main hall and sat waiting for the movie to start. I sat at the back. I wanted to make sure I could see everyone's faces. The video began to play, but instead of the opening credits of the film, we saw Charlotte, Verity, and Tamsin running out of the house crying like babies. The whole school started laughing, everyone except the 3 main girls.
"Oh, do you want your mommy?"
A boy said to Charlotte.
"Were you scared?"
Asked another one. Charlotte, Verity, and Tamsin walked towards me. "We know you did this," they said. "Why would you embarrass us like that?" I was about to answer when Tina came striding over.
"It wasn't Carla, it was me,"
she said. As she said it, she took off her shirt and wig. "Wait, are you a girl?" asked Charlotte. "Yes," said Tina. "I am a girl, and what's more, I am Carla's big sister." Charlotte, Verity, and Tamsin all gasped. "And nobody gets away with being mean to Carla when I'm around," said Tina. Tina put her arm around me and we walked out of the hall. "I don't think you'll be getting any more trouble from those 3, she said. And she was right. I didn't. Got a job as Laura's assistant, I thought I was set for life. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be locked away like a prisoner in Azkaban. Hi, my name is Jolene. My life changed drastically about 3 months ago. Before I continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. If you do, you would win $1 million within the next 7 days. It really works. I was looking through the classifieds for a job while sitting on my bed in my tiny apartment when the words personal assistant needed caught my eyes. I mumbled to myself as I carefully read the ad. Need 1 female personal assistant, age 25, 5 foot 5 inches tall, slim build, short wavy black hair, that goes by the name Rebecca. Pay per month, $5,000 plus bonuses. Call 555-7625 for more information. My eyes widened when I realized the amount of money that would be paid. Well, my name isn't Rebecca, but I sure look the part. I grabbed my phone that was sitting next to me and called the number. The person on the next side gave me the address, as well as the time of my interview, which was carded for the next day. I arrived at the address by taxi. And to my surprise, it wasn't an ordinary work office as I had expected. It was a mansion. I jumped out of the taxi and pressed the intercom nervously. "Hi, good afternoon," I said in the best customer service voice. "My name is Rebecca Miller, and I'm here for the job interview." I waited for a few seconds. The only response was the opening of the huge gates that seemed to close off the mansion from the rest of the world. I approached the front door and pressed the doorbell. The door was opened by a slim, elderly man with a solemn face who was dressed in a butler's uniform. "Good afternoon," I said politely and extended my hand. The man ignored my hand, which I placed by my side once more, and said, "Follow me." He waited for me to enter before closing the door behind us. He walked briskly, and I followed in silence. Everything we passed seemed like a blur to me. I was trying to get a glimpse of everything when I bumped into someone. "Excuse me," I said, embarrassed. The lady in the maid outfit just smiled and nodded as she went about her business. We came upon huge ivory doors and stopped. The man knocked twice, opened the door, and nodded at me to enter. I smiled and entered the room. He closed the door behind me. As I walked further into the room, I noticed a slender woman with large blue eyes and blonde wavy hair sat behind the desk. I approached and she greeted me with a smile. "Hi, Rebecca. Have a seat. My name is Laura Hamilton." We talked for a few minutes and to my surprise, she didn't ask for my resume or even my identification. I was in luck. "So how soon can you start?" Laura asked. My eyes lit up. "I got the job! I got the job!" I celebrated in my head, but I calmly responded, "I can start today if needed." "Great, let's get started," Laura said. The next 3 months were amazing. I scheduled Laura's appointments and helped her plan her dinner parties. We ate lunches and dinners at the finest restaurants. She even took me shopping and bought me a new car. "So, Rebecca," Laura asked one night as we were having dinner at a restaurant, "what about your parents? Any siblings?" I swallowed and replied, "My parents travel a lot for business, and I am an only child." I drank some wine and continued, "Do you and Mr. Hamilton have any children?" Laura's face looked blank as she responded in a faraway voice, "My husband was lost at sea, and my daughter—" Just then, the waiter approached our table. "Do you ladies need anything?" Laura's blank facial expression faded, and she returned to her usual jovial self as she chatted with the waiter. When the waiter left, Laura turned her attention to me. "I have a business trip to go to tomorrow, and I was wondering if you would like to accompany me." "I would love to!" I exclaimed. "Great. We will stop by your place so you can get your passport and whatever else you may need for the trip." My mind screeched to a halt. My passport. My passport had the name Jolene Miller, not Rebecca Miller. I gulped down the last of my wine and wondered how I was going to talk myself out of this one. After dinner, just as planned, Laura's chauffeur, Alex, drove us to my place where I collected my stuff. What am I gonna do now? The jig is up, Jules. You better confess sooner than later, I mumbled to myself as I packed my bag. After packing and securing my tiny apartment, I headed back to the car and contemplated whether or not to tell Laura about the lie that I spun to get the job. I decided that tonight I was gonna make the best of it and let tomorrow see about itself. As soon as we got to Laura's, Laura excused herself. I have a few things to finish organizing for our trip tomorrow, but let me show you to your room. I sent all the staff home for a little holiday since I would not be here for the next few days. My room, just like everything else in Laura's house, reeked glamour. From the king-sized canopy bed to the expensive piece of art that covered the walls. I sat on the bed and thought about my dilemma, and before long I fell asleep. I opened my eyes slowly and sighed. Well, Jules, today is the day. Time to kiss your new job goodbye. Something was different. I looked around slowly, then shot into a sitting position. Where the hell am I? I tried to move off the bed, but tumbled off awkwardly as my foot was chained to the bedpost. This wasn't the glamorous room that I fell asleep in. My heart stopped and my blood ran cold. Why was I chained to the bed? Where was Laura? What the hell was going on? I shrieked as I tugged at the chain. I shouted for help for what seemed like hours, but no one came. I sat on the bed and cried. I probably fell asleep because when I awoke, there was a tray with some sandwiches, a mug of juice, and a note in Laura's handwriting. Dear Rebecca, thank you for coming home. I have not seen you in such a long time. I know that the last time we saw each other, we got into a huge fight. I just wanted to tell you that I am sorry. I have chained you to the bed in the basement because I just want to keep you safe, where I can keep an eye on you. I don't want to lose you again. Love, Mom. This is not happening. This is not happening, I repeated to myself as I tugged at my hair. Laura, my name is Jolene, not Rebecca. Let me out of here, I screamed at the top of my lungs. If the staff really did go home, then there was nobody left on the large estate that could hear me. I sat and sulked. The chain was attached to the bedpost. Then I got a brilliant idea. All I needed to do was kick the bedpost out and the chain would fall out. I kicked, pushed, tugged on that bedpost like my life depended on it, because it did. I wasn't about to be held captive by some psychopath. Finally, the bedpost came loose, and I was able to move around. My arms and legs ached, but at least I was free. I noticed there was a small window at the top of the basement. There was a table and some boxes in the corner. Maybe I could squeeze through the window and escape. It was already dark. The moonlight was shining in, highlighting the night creatures that ran across the basement floor. I wish the basement was as glamorous as the rest of the house. I panted as I dragged the table across the floor, then piled the boxes on top. I climbed gingerly to the top of the makeshift pile, but my heart shattered when I realized that the window had solid steel bars. There was no way I could get those loose. Hi, Becky. I stumbled down the pile and crashed to the ground with a thud. I'm not Becky, I yelled. My name is Jolene. I looked around the room frantically and noticed 4 cameras, each placed securely in the 4 corners of the room. That's how you escaped last time, honey, so I made sure to secure the windows this time, Laura said sweetly. Last time? I scratched my head in disbelief, talking to myself. Then it hit me. Laura had done this before. The ad for a personal assistant was extremely specific, even down to the person's name. But I never questioned why she would want the person to be named Rebecca. Who was Rebecca? I paced the room back and forth, trying to think of ways to escape. I searched for secret passages, a key that may have been left behind. I even ran and smashed into the door, hoping that it would budge. Well, that didn't turn out too well either. The only thing I ended up with was a bruised shoulder. That basement was my home for the next 7 days until something truly bizarre happened. While asleep, I felt someone place their hand over my mouth before quickly covering it with duct tape. The person was dressed in all black and wore a black mask. I fought against the intruder and was able to knock them to the ground, and I ran. My legs felt like jelly as I pulled the duct tape off my mouth. I sounded like Scrooge's business partner Marley from The Christmas Carol, as the chain that was still locked to my foot dragged behind me. I tried every door and every window I came upon, but they were all locked. I needed to escape. I felt the walls closing in around me. Suddenly, it went black. Someone had thrown a black sack over my head and thrown me over their shoulder. How unlucky could a girl get? First I was held captive, and now I was being kidnapped? But why? The person was much stronger than a person I fought with in the basement. The person moved quickly, and soon I could feel the cold breeze on my exposed legs. Where are you taking me? My muffled scream sounded from the bag. I heard a door open and I was thrown into the back seat. The screeching of the tires alerted me that we were now moving. I waited for what seemed like an eternity before the vehicle stopped. I heard the door open and I began to kick and scream once more. Hey, Lady's voice said, we're here to help you. I was a bit confused at first, but I still sat and allowed her to take the sack off my head. You? I said much louder than I intended. It was the same maid that I bumped into the day I had the interview with Laura. She greeted me with a warm smile. Hi, I'm Angela, and this is my partner. She waved at the man coming around the van. Jeff Hamilton. What? Where? Incoherent words fell out of my mouth. I was so confused. Laura said you were dead. I said, looking at Jeff. Well, I can assure you that I'm not, Jeff said with a smile. But why? I asked with a puzzled expression on my face as I looked from Jeff to Angela for answers. Well, Jeff said, scratching his head, my marriage to Laura was arranged. She was always so stern and tense. She wanted everything done her way. She was bossy and mistreated me and the staff. I always felt stuck in that marriage. I wanted out. So when the storm hit that day and we were on the yacht, I made my escape. My body was never found, so everyone just assumed I was dead. A few months after my horrific accident, I met Angela. I confided in her, and we've been inseparable since. Jeff winked at Angela and she blushed. I looked at Jeff and raised my eyebrows. But who is Rebecca? I watched as pain flushed Jeff's face. He dipped into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He removed a picture and handed it to me. This is Rebecca, our daughter, Jeff said softly. My jaw dropped open. I felt as though I was looking at a picture of myself. What happened? I asked, handing Jeff back his picture. I watched as he secured it in his wallet, then his pocket. Rebecca died in a car accident about 6 months ago. Jeff choked. Angela placed her hand around his shoulders and comforted him. Jeff continued when he was more composed. I am sorry that you got mixed up into this. You were not the first person that Laura has done this to. My eyes widened and I felt my stomach churn as Jeff told me about the 3 other girls he had to rescue from Laura's clutches. He pointed at himself and Angela, have tried getting Laura the help that she needs, but she refuses. She has always been stubborn. So what happens now? I said half aloud, wondering if I were dreaming and if I would soon wake up. It's not safe for you to go home, Angela said quickly. She opened the front door of the vehicle and in her hands was a key and some clothing. She handed me both and said, hurry, we have a private plane waiting for you, but you need to hurry. You can't go back to your apartment in case Laura shows up. Jeff chimed in. I am pleading with you. Please don't tell anyone about this. Laura doesn't need to go to jail. She needs to get help. I am willing to give you $10 million to disappear and change your identity. Now get dressed quickly. Time is against us. Jeff closed the door to the vehicle and I was alone with my thoughts. As I unlocked the chain with my leg and dressed into the clothes that were given to me, I thought about my choices. I could take the $10 million, escape, leaving my parents and old life behind while hoping the next personal assistant makes it out alive. Or I could go to the police and make a report. Please, viewers, help me make a decision. Leave your answers in the comment section below.